And what about you? 2013 Peugeot 208, beautifully finished in red. And GTI goes like stink, this wee car. That is until the management light comes on. Whenever the guy drives it down the road, does about 10 mile or something, gets it up to temperature, and bing, management light on, read message in the dash, take the car to workshop. There's about 38,000 miles on this car, so we'll scan the car for codes first thing. Okay, so there's a few codes here, and this is in the Peugeot end of things. So there's a CAN network fault there in the ABS, the BIS, the built-in systems interface there. Inter-systems CAN, speed data fault again. Air conditioning low, not interested in that. Seems to be a bit of a CAN issue here. P2191 richness regulation. And what's that? Instrument panel, matrix screen, integral to the instrument panel. So that's the wee screen that flags up the wee graphics there. Some sort of event not recorded. And then there's a LIN fault there, which is another communication method to rain sunlight sensor. So we'll go into OBD and see what we have. So you can see I've scanned this car a number of times because I've been doing that much mucking about with it. And this is all historical here, guys. So this I'm recording this sort of after the event. So P2191 is stored and again pending. So that is the code that caused our DTC in the dash. So this car came to me with a bit of a history. It's been in another garage, and apparently it's had a timing chain fitted, apparently for a rattle. Now, it's been in another garage for a while now, according to the owner, and he's been given the car back and hardly drove it at 10 mile or something, and the engine management light has come on, and he reports the car goes dead on. It seems to go great. It goes on throttle really well. There's no real hesitation. Starts okay and all that, but he just wants to get to the bottom of this engine management light. So he believes there's something still there from the timing chain. Or, he doesn't really know, but it's been doing that since the timing chain. I don't really know the reason why the timing chain was fitted. I assume it was for a rattle. So this is some live data here that I've just recorded, and this is after a bit of mucking about that I did. So what I did initially was I looked at the fuel trims, because we're getting a lean code there of some description. Normally a P2171's a lean code, but there's a lean code here saying that it's not happy with the mixture regulation. So I'm going to look at the trims, see if the O2 sensors, look at the MAF, look at the barometric pressure, look at all those sort of data PIDs, engine coolant temperature and stuff like that. So this is a recording here, and it took a hell of a while to go into the closed loop. Now when I get this car at first, the long term was stuck at 25 and the short term was 0. So even when the car was in open loop, it was 25. So what I discovered was whenever this creeps up, and it takes a while to do it doesn't do it right away, but this creeps up, these numbers are positive all the time when at idle, and whenever it creeps up to 25, it throws that code, that P2191 code, or 219 code I think it is, the one that I showed you anyway. And so I'm looking at these fuel trims. These fuel trims aren't correct, and as you can see, it's in open loop there. I'm going to scoot this along a wee bit, and that's me. I'll just scoot that a wee bit so you can see the RPM down at the bottom here. The RPM, that's idling there, and there's it in closed loop there. So I give it a bit of a rev there, and we can see the short term's going down there, or sorry, the long term's going down there, short term's up, so it's going rich, so that's what you would expect there. And there's 17 initially. Now this is after this capture here is after I reset all the adaptions. So made those two go to 0 and took it for a brisk drive and see what would come back and all that. And that was with clearing all the codes out as well to see what would come back. So had a look at the field terms initially, or all the data initially, then did a lot of adaptions, did a lot of resets and stuff like that. So because the thing had a timing chain, we reset the adaptions for the variable valve timing, and the trims then both were at 0. But whenever the car came to me at first, this was stuck at 25. The long term stuck at 25 with the engine management light on. So we can see the fuel trims there. There's at idle. So short term at 15, long term 16. Quite high positive fuel trims there. So we'll go along. Quite high short term. That's it in closed loop now. I don't know what's happened there. I must have turned the car off or something there. So in closed loop there, you can see the fuel trim's quite high. Now, let me see if I captured the MAF. I didn't capture them initially. So we'll maybe see. There's the MAF there, 1.66 grams per second at idle. Now, a sort of rough rule of thumb that I use is, it's about just over 1 gram per second per litre of displacement. This car's 1.6, so it seems to be in around correct. There's 1.7 there, and that's all around the idle mark, 743 and around the 750 RPM. So to me, the grams per second, the MAF was pretty good. The Barrow was pretty good. It was roughly about 1,000 with the just the ignition on, so that's about correct. It drops a bit there at idle, and this is a turbocharged car, so it doesn't go right down as you would expect on a normally aspirated car. So all those data PIDs were correct. What I then did was to make sure my O2s were switching and the trims were going to react. We'll just go back to the big numbers here. There's it in closed loop there. So what I did was I took the boost pressure sensor out, which was handy to access right at the top of the boost pressure hose, and allowed some propane gas into it, and these fuel trims went negative immediately. The short term went negative, and that started dropping. But whenever this goes to 25, it will creep back up again to 25, and that's the setting criteria for that code. So if you're not familiar with fuel trims, we were setting fairly high positive fuel trims here. So that means that it's adding fuel and it's a lean exhaust. The O2 is sensing that it's lean, the mixture, the burn is lean coming out, so it adds fuel, and that's how you get a positive fuel trim reading. So what I was doing at the first stage when I got the car, I was blipping the throttle and I was making it go wide open throttle, and the fuel trims were collapsing. They were going back down towards the zero again, if not zero. So that was indicative of a vacuum leak. And as I said, the O2s was happy. The O2s were switching okay. When I added fuel, it was making it go into the minus. I was adding fuel with propane in the intake. So by doing that, then that was telling me it's sure saying there's a vacuum leak here or something along those lines. So we smoked the intake and blocked off the evap, blocked off any purge valves, smoked the intake by itself, isolated from the turbo and the intercooler hoses and the boost pressure hoses, and then smoked the whole system, and that proved absolutely nothing, no visuals whatsoever. So we need to take our diagnosis a wee bit further. So from obtaining the history, the recent history of the car, considering it's just out of another garage, it's just had a timing chain fitted, and the guy's pulling this car out because this car's been off the road for months apparently. So I was getting a pretty good story from the owner, and he was telling me what he knew and what he was told by the garage that had the car, and so okay, the fuel trims seem a bit crazy. We're not seeing any leaks in the intake tract or the boost. So I just did something pretty simple. I just stuck it into Google, and P2191 Peugeot, up right away there, it is in fact a timing fault. The camshaft pulleys on these engines are not secured with a keyway and are prone to slipping and giving this fault code. Hope that's in focus there. So there we go. It is in fact a timing fault. So this car is only after having the timing chain. So this is the joys of working on a car that somebody else has been working on. And I just want to take the coil packs out there. And can't even see the spark plugs. There's not much oil in them welds. So he hasn't put the wee sealing rings in the rocker cover. So here I'll have the rocker cover off. I'll have a wee look at this, and with all the oil out there. These pistons are all sitting halfway. I have a crank locking pin okay for this, but I don't have cam locking pins for this particular one. I only have the kit for the older style engine. So as we can see, there's new Vanos units there. There's a new tensioner down in there. The looks of it, new guides and all that there. So to physically check the timing the mechanical way, these flats here, the timing locking kit sit in these flats, so they have to be completely perpendicular. So I need to sort of see whether these are sitting nice and straight up. So I need to come up with something to be able to see if they're correct or not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make use this set square as a reference and set it on top of the head. Nice flat surface, and we're just going to use something nice and straight. Use this screwdriver and set it against the flat there. Hopefully that'll tell us if this is straight or not. So if we put our screwdriver against the flat on our exhaust cam there, it lines up pretty well there to the set square. So we're on the inlet now, and the square's on the head there, and I've managed to clamp the screwdriver to that flat of the camshaft. So I'll just zoom in a wee bit. We can see it's very, very, very slightly off. If we can steady it up a wee bit there. Just anti-clockwise slightly. Which, yeah. Okay, so I'll get a locker kit and tighten this up correctly so it's perfect. You'll be able to see it from this side of the car a wee bit better, a wee bit closer. So, yeah. It's only a few degrees, but we'll correct that. So that's a screwdriver sitting alongside that flat there, and if you look here, it looks like he's used vice grips to hold that camshaft. Yeah. In case you're not familiar with this engine, this is a PSA, Peugeot Citroen BMW joint venture. It's known as the Prince engine. So it's had a few evolutions in its time. It's been on the go from the early 2000s. So first of all, just to tell you what's going on here, these units here, they're known as the Vanos units. Now that's a BMW term for variable valve timing. Other manufacturers call this VVT, variable valve timing. Cam phasers, so there could be different names, but they're all the same thing. And these spring things here, in case you're wondering what they are, that's variable valve lift. So that it alters the lift on the valves, and that works with this cog here. And there's a motor down in there that can move that rod, can twist that rod, and that adjusts the lift of the valves. So these adjust the timing of the valves, and you have an inlet and exhaust. It'll be marked inlet and exhaust, so you don't want to get them mixed up. But now there are wee dots on this, and there's wee markings here, but it doesn't matter what position these are in. So you don't actually tame these. These are freewheeling on the camshaft, and they're just held in with this bolt on friction, so they're not keyed. So a common mistake whenever people put these on and tame them is actually to follow the instructions. The instructions are, well, they're not wrong, but they're not great. So there's a pre-tensioning tool in the instructions, and my advice is not to use it because you have no idea what tension's on the chain. And this inlet is in the retarded position slightly, and that's pretty indicative of it hasn't been tensioned properly. But it's probably been tensioned to the instructions. But anyway, I'll talk about that later on. So these phasers on this particular engine, they are actually known to slip. They're actually known to turn. But with the chain going in the clockwise direction with the rotation of the engine, if this had a slip, that I would expect it to be in the advanced position. This one's retarded, but so I don't think that's happened. So what I've decided to do, I'm waiting. I've bought new bolts. These are one use only stretch bolts. I don't know whether these have been replaced or these have been reused. And what I'm going to do is take these two Vanos units off and get the cams locked, and make sure the surfaces are clean and degreased, free of oil, because I'm expecting oil to be in these because this engine's been running with these on. So if I just loosen that off, oil will probably get in between the maintenance surfaces, between the back of the phaser and the camshaft. So another wee thing to note with this particular one, to have the camshafts in the right position, there is rating on, hopefully you can get that in the shot. There we go. There's rating on the camshafts, and they need to be upward, and as a result of that, the top of these here are flat. The back side of that is a convex sort of shape, so it's a dome sort of shape. So if you have you could have the engine in the correct position and the flywheel locked, and if these camshafts, if you can't see that rating, then that flat bit will be on the underside. So you don't put the engine at TDC in this. All four pistons are at a mid position, and they're all level. All four pistons are all level. So there's no TDC in doing this. You tame this with the pistons halfway down. So that's why you need the flywheel locking pin, so you know the pistons are in their correct position. So you can put something in, and a bit of welding rod or something, and you can see it going up and down. But if I put a screwdriver in these will all be level. So just a wee bit of history on this variable valve timing thing. The first production car was 1980 by Alfa Romeo, and who pioneered a lot of things in cars. And it wasn't for like almost 10 years later that Honda launched their VTEC version of variable valve timing. So it's been on the go for a while, and they all look very similar to these cogs here in this type of system, this hydraulic controlled. So the way this works then, there's a solenoid down here, and there's a solenoid down the back here, and that opens and lets oil into this, and the oil pressure then moves in that inside, so the cam can freely spin inside this about that much, about 20 degrees or something like that. Don't know exactly. Well, different manufacturers are different. So the inlet the reason why these are marked differently, because one can move a bit more than the other. The inlet will probably be able to move more than the exhaust. So there's a lot of cars and versions of this engine where you won't have a phaser on the exhaust. You'll only have a phaser on the inlet. So a lot of cars with variable valve timing just have it on the inlet. They just vary the inlet so positioning. So as the car advances, it advances the ignition timing and also advances the cam timing. So, but ones with a higher output would have the Vanoses on the two. So there's a wee bit of history and a wee bit of how it works. So this version of this Prince engine, it's one of the later versions, or some of them would have it only on the inlet, as I said. Some of them don't have variable valve lift, so you wouldn't see that chain of springs there. You just see the two cams. But it's basically the same engine, and this engine is it's known as an N18 engine in BMW land, and it's in the Mini. So a couple of days later, here we are. We'll have a package from Scamazon. So this is the one that I talked about. This is the old one that I had. It does the N12, N14 engine. Very, very similar. It's in the Mini, so I'll just flip it over here. I'll just show you that. So this is the one that I've done timing chains in before. And there we go. Guys, please don't ask me for model numbers and that there. You get these online on the usual marketplaces, and that's where you get them from. You can go and search it for yourself. And we'll just open this one up and see what the difference is. I'll bear you the indignity of watching me unboxing that. So there's our timing kit for this engine. This does the N13 and N18 engine. And as we can see, there are some similarities here in the fact that, well, this pin here I have in the car, which is the pin out of this kit. So that is the crank locking pin, and you just stick that into the flywheel there. There's a few bolts with it, and there's this thing here, this item here, and this is this pre-tensioning tool that I was talking about in the earlier part of the video. So another Google search will have some instructions, and again, don't ask for a link for this. Search for it yourself, you'll get it yourself. That's what I had to do. So I'm showing you this, I'm telling you all about it. You can do your own research. So anyway, in the instructions, it talks about pre-tension timing chain with special tool, the 0.6 of a Newton meter. 0.6 of a Newton meter, which is nothing. And there's that wee timing tool in there in place of the normal tensioner. So there's our two cam wheels. There's the special tools in place, and you do this pre-tension carry on here. So were a lot of guys, these guys, any guys, a whole lot, this has caught loads and loads of people out, is you don't use that pre-tension tool. It's not necessary. So what you want to do is whenever you tighten these camshafts, you do it with the chain under its proper tension. So what this thing here suggests to do is put that pre-tension tool in, set it at 0.6 of a Newton meter, which is practically nothing, and you don't really know what tension you have on the chain when you do that. So it says put it to 0.6 of a Newton meter, and then tighten up your pulleys there with the inlet first, and then followed by the exhaust, and that's fully tighten them. So then you take the pre-tension tool out, which is this thing here. Take the pre-tension tool out, and you put the proper tensioner in. And what happens then is the proper tension, the actual tensioner, puts more tension on than you had on this, more tension on the chain, and that pulls that inlet pulley back. So the way you do this is, if you were doing a timing chain from fresh, I'm not doing this complete timing chain, I'm not touching the crank. But what you want to do is have the crank loose, the two cams loose, and all the pulley wheels then loose, and you put in your proper tensioner. And forget about this, don't use that at all. So you've no idea what tension is on the chain whenever you're tightening them bolts up, if you follow these instructions. And again, do not ask for a link. Anybody asks for a link, there will be no reply in the comments. So we're going to offer up our new timing tools here. This is the exhaust one, so that fits in, and that needs to sit flush to the head. So that's sitting there nicely on the exhaust. So we knew that anyway from the thing that we did with the set square. So this one here, it's a different shape to the other engines, and there's this big bridge thing over it, and that's to go over the valve tronic that I talked about earlier on. So if we offer that up to the inlet, it's a bit tight on that. it's a bit tight on that. So it is. So I'll maybe have to dress that a bit. Ah, there we go. It is. Oh, that's good that it is that tight actually. So yeah, it's just that. Yeah, it's hitting the Valvetronic there slightly. That's why it's knocking in. So we can see here a furrowed gap. I'll just zoom in on that. Are you getting that okay? So there's a gap there. So there is an acceptable tolerance with it regarding this gap, and it's about 2 to 2.5 mil. So this one here is about 8 mil or something like that, I think. So you can see it's quite large. So that is way out of tolerance there, and this inlet then is opening at the wrong time, which sort of explains our crazy fuel trims all over the shop. So what we'll have to do is we need to get this the fit in here, but I'm going to show you another wee thing that you need to test. It's sort of how to test your valence units. There's a wee hex here, and it's 27 mil, but it's a wee bit loose on it, and that's a very big spanner I have there. So I have another wee dopey spanner here. Now, you don't want to tighten, put tremendous torque. So you do want to tighten the cam wheels, or in this case the valence units, by holding this hex, because that'll move that. And if you do that, you're in deep trouble. But what you can do is, and without putting an awful lot of force on it, if you move that back and forward with a wee bit of force on it, that'll check that your valence units are indeed actually locked in this sort of null position. So that's a wee check, and if you can move that cam with a bit of force there, a wee bit of force, because you don't want to put too much in this. If you can move that, that means your cam is free to turn or to move within your valence unit, and that means it's not locked. So that's a sure indicator. If you can do that, your valence unit is faulty. So loosen the bolt in the inlet there, whilst counter holding the cam with that part in there on a spanner. And as you can see, we have that's the locking tools in, so it's holding the exhaust there, sitting nice and flat on the head there. So that's the cams correctly timed. So as I was saying, I didn't want to just leave it at that, and you could have maybe tightened that bolt up again, and that's job done. So I've went ahead and taken this exhaust pulley off, as you can see. So we just get you in there a wee bit. You can see the oil coming out there, and that's what I didn't want. I didn't want the oil on these faces. So we'll give that a wee bit of a clean up, a brake cleaner there. And I don't want the chain dropping down and coming off the crank sprocket. So I've just held in position with that extension bar. So regarding the tensioner, I've the tensioner backed out to give me enough slack to get the cog off. So you can maybe see it in there, maybe. If I can maybe zoom you in a wee bit. I have the tensioner backed off. So it's on about sort of like the last thread. It's just about holding in there itself, and that's giving me enough slack in the chain, and the top chain guide off there, obviously. So we'll give it a wee clean up, get her back on again, leave it sort of finger tight, do the same with the inlet. This one, do the same with that. Get new bolts in and get her torqued up. So that's our pulleys back on again. Maintenance surfaces all cleaned, degreased. New bolts, tensioner in first, 80 Newton meters in the tensioner, and the wee bolts are 20 Newton meters first of all, and then 180 degrees. So to do the 180 degrees, you can use these things here, but I prefer the old school method there, which you maybe have a wee look, zoom you in. So a couple of wee paint marks. So the top one there is where that started off. So you just down 180 degrees. To me, that's the simplest method to do that. So that's the engine back in time again. So now we'll have to just take those tools off the rotator, 2 turns of the crank, 720 degrees, and we'll refit the tools again, make sure everything's okay. So the car timing check there, it's within tolerance, so you will get a wee gap on those locking kits there, but as long as it's only about 2 mil, I think the tolerance is 2.5 mil, so I'm happy enough with it. So we need to address the problem for the oil in the spark plug welds. So we can see here that there's silicone here around this rubber gasket. So a rubber gasket, you don't need to add silicone. People plaster that stuff everywhere. So there's our wee O-rings that we're leaking, and they were present, but they've been reused. And if I have a wee look here, they've been just silicone, so we need to pick all that off and get a new gasket on. Car's back there again, reset all the adaptions, let her get up to temperature, and took it for a brisk drive there. So we'll have a wee look at our live data, see what difference that's made. And there we go. Look at those fuel trims. Those fuel trims are perfect. And that's it idle there. Nice 700 RPM and around there. Our flow rate's still much the same, 1.69. And there we go. So that's it in closed loop. And that's it up to temperature there, 95. So there you are now. That's it for this one, guys. Hope that helped you out. If you ever get one of these N18 mini engines, it's in a Peugeot as well, and you get that a mixture problem, skyrocket, fuel trims all over the shop, that might help you out. So there you go. Many thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that wee one, and all the best, and bye bye.